Thank you, Pastor Aaron, and thank you for the privilege of speaking to you this morning. I use words carefully, and so when I say privilege, I do mean it. Yes, it has been a delight for Catherine and me to become grandparents for the very first time. I think I'm old enough. Okay, I you just don't have to comment on that. Okay, it's all right to smile. Okay, and I'm going to show you a picture later on in the sermon. You knew I'd worked that in, didn't you? You knew I'd worked that in. We're talking this morning about the amazing gift of the life of God. And this is a sermon that's actually been percolating in me for about 4 months. So I'm thrilled to be able to share this with you. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for your love and your grace and for your life, Lord. Thank you for the life of the gift of God which we have in us when we reach out to you. May that life be vibrant and up to date and real. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. John 10 and 10 is a great verse that summarizes what we're going to say. Jesus says this, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. To the full. One of the most basic desires of human beings, and this is a good desire, is to get maximum fulfillment and enjoyment out of life. We want to enjoy life to the full. I want to enjoy life to the full. It's not a bad desire. Along with this desire, there comes indeed the haunting fear that I may be missing out on life, that life may be passing me by. I remember as a young person, I went to youth group at Stone Church in downtown Toronto every Friday night. And there were some Friday nights when I had this haunting fear that the kids in my high school who were at the school dances were enjoying things more than I was. The haunting fear that life was passing me by. Most advertising on TV, most advertising on social media is aimed at this strong desire for us to get the maximum enjoyment out of life and not let life pass us by. For example, we have all seen the boat ads and the Sea-Doo ads, where the Sea-Doos are flying over the waves. Can you hear that jingle in your head? I can hear it now. Gotta get out on the water. Gotta get out on the water. And that just resonates in our mind, and we think we gotta buy one of those. Both of my brothers have nice boats, mind you. Travel ads. And we have these ads that tell us you must absolutely take this Viking cruise on the Danube River or your life will never be complete. And that comes and speaks to us so eloquently. And there's the car ads, you absolutely must drive a Tesla. I was in a Tesla SUV about a year ago in Hong Kong. They picked me up to take me to a church to preach, and it was a gorgeous vehicle, spoke. You got to be in a Tesla. And so we have these ads, and I admit that these things are fun. I don't minimize that. But my weakness, as Catherine knows, is for the travel ads. They're the ones that get me. The problem is that none of these areas can deliver maximum enjoyment. None of them can deliver it because they all have a short shelf life. The cars are all superseded by a new model the next year. The boats all have a greater and better model that comes out the following year. The travel ads only involve experiences that last for 10 or 14 days at max. And so we realize the short shelf life. The problem is finding direction to the maximum enjoyment of life. And that's the challenge for all of us in life. The place that we want to go, how do we find it? Our search for life often feels that we are in a place of frustration because we are going around in circles, around and around and around, and never really advancing towards our goal of getting the maximum enjoyment out of life. One of my favorite cities in the world is the city of Rome. One of my favorite cities because it has great history going back 2,000 years, great art museums like the Borghese Gallery, just a fantastic place with statues that are just absolutely astounding. Great architecture like the Trevi Fountain. Okay, take your husband and wife to the Trevi Fountain at about 9 o'clock at night. It is a fabulous place to go to, and you can see it there. The Colosseum, one of the great architectures, marvels of the world, St. Peter's Basilica. However, there's only one challenge navigating in Rome, and that is the fact that the city is based on a series of circles. And so the challenge is this: you don't know which way is west or which way is north. And so when you check in with the Google lady on your Google Maps, she says very kindly, go 500 meters north and go 300 meters west. And because it's in a circle, you have no idea what is north, west, south, or east. And we've experienced that frustration in Rome. Catherine and I indeed had a disagreement over this in Rome on one occasion. Is it all right to talk about that, Brother Joel? Okay, tell us more. Yes, we did. We had a wonderful day at the Borghese Gallery, okay? And we saw these wonderful statues, and we were heading back to our hotel, and Jim is rather frugal. We don't use the word cheap in our family, okay? Jim finds that word offensive, but frugal is all right, okay? So I'm rather frugal, and I decided we were going to walk back to our hotel and find it ourselves. But the circles in Rome faked us out. 2 hours later, we are finally back at our hotel because of the circles in Rome. Well, finding maximum fulfillment and enjoyment in life is a lot like traveling in Rome. We feel like we're going around in circles. The central truth this morning that I want us to walk away from is that the Gospel of John gives us magnificent direction in finding the maximum fulfillment and enjoyment in life. I encourage you, in fact, to read the Gospel of John this week with a fresh set of eyes and look for the references to life in this gospel. In fact, 36 times at least, the author John refers to life and Jesus being the source of this life and giving it to his followers. Let me just give you a little sampling of the verses. John 1 and 4. In him was life, and that life was the light of man. John 3:16, when we believe in Jesus, we immediately receive eternal or everlasting life. John 8 and 12, whoever follows me will have the light of life. John 10 and 10, I have come that they might have life and that they might have it to the full. This is a powerful, no holds barred, straightforward claim that Jesus makes. He doesn't say you get a little bit of life, you get a partial bit of life, but indeed you will have it to the full and experience it totally. Rick Watt puts it well when he says this: being a follower of Jesus is all about life. And that's important, folk. Being a follower of Jesus is not all about rules. Being a follower of Jesus is not all about, I do this, I do that, I'm not supposed to do this. No, being a follower of Jesus is all about life. And we've missed it when we don't concentrate on that. Going back to Rick Watt, he says the life of God goes above or transcends all human conditions in this world when we become a Christian. This is what it means to become a Christian. The directions to this life are clear. Believe in Jesus and then cultivate your relationship with him on an ongoing basis. The challenge is cultivating the relationship with Jesus. It's not difficult to say, Jesus, please come into my life and please save me. And in a moment, he does that. But the challenge which I have and which you have is cultivating the life of God within my own personal experience. Do you know people who have seemingly committed their life to Jesus and now the life of God is at best on life support and maybe dead within them? So the life of God needs this constant cultivation. Many of you have had the neat experiences we have had in the spring, going out to the nursery and buying some flowers. And you take those flowers, you put them in pots, you put them in the garden, and there's nobody who just gets flowers from Costco, plants them in the ground, and then ignores them and does not cultivate them. Everybody who plants flowers waters them. Everybody who has flowers puts a little bit of nutrient on them. Everybody who has flowers cultivates and takes care of them. The same is true with the life of God. It's not a matter of just saying a prayer when you're 10 years old and then forgetting about the Lord after that for the rest of your life. The cultivation is crucial. We cultivate our relationship with Jesus through coming to church, cultivating the life of God by being here this morning. As we worship the Lord, it's cultivating the life of God. As we hear the message, it's cultivating the life of God. We cultivate the life of God as we have prayer times during the week. We're coming in contact with the Father and saying, the life of God is important to me. We cultivate the life of God as we read scriptures, which is the eternal book, and say, Lord, I want to grow in the life of God. The life of God should be communicated to us as we interact with people in our everyday life. Rick Watts said something that is absolutely challenging to me. He said this: when people who are with us, they should walk away feeling more alive than at any time in their existence. Why? Because we have the life of God in us. If the life of God is there in us, people should walk away feeling more alive than at any time in their existence. And I asked myself this, Jim, do people walk away from you feeling more alive? You see, there should be this sense of encouragement that we give to people. When people walk away from us, are they encouraged? Do they feel cared for? Do they feel lifted up, or do they feel condemned and burdened down? The life of God should not only be in us, but it should be shared on a daily, regular basis. John's gospel is amazing. I've been going into it in significant detail because I'm teaching a course in it in Brussels, Belgium in September. But one of the amazing things I notice is that there are 21 chapters in the Gospel of John, okay? And a full two of these chapters deals with Jesus talking one-on-one to individuals. Now, what's amazing about that? What's amazing that almost 10% of the book would deal just with two people. Like, come on, Lord, two people. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people in Palestine. Start teaching them and healing them. No, two people, individuals. And these individual conversations happen in John 3, where Jesus talks to Nicodemus, and John 4, where Jesus talks to the woman at the well. This shows that Jesus is concerned about individuals. Yes, he feeds the 5,000 and is concerned about them, but individuals are at the heart of his ministry and the heart of his ministry to us. But what is absolutely fascinating more so to me is the range of difference in the people in these conversations. The range of concern that Jesus had was demonstrated so magnificently. First of all, there's the ethnic difference. We think we have ethnic differences in our world. The Jews hated, hated the Samaritans. Nicodemus was a Jew. The Samaritan woman was, as you can tell, Samaritan and despised by the Jews. We see the difference, the gender difference as well. One is a man and one is a woman. We see the educational difference. Nicodemus would have been well educated. The Samaritan woman, probably largely uneducated. Then there's the moral difference. Nicodemus is a moral, upstanding leader, somebody who indeed is a paragon of virtue in the community. This Samaritan woman had 5 husbands. She was noted for her immorality. Today, we recognize that Jesus wants to have a life-giving experience with you, regardless of your ethnicity, your gender, your education, and your moral status. The life of God is available to all of us this morning. We grasp something of the magnificent reality of this life of God when we realize this comes through Jesus from God Father. And the two words that are important there are the Father. Now, let me hasten to add here this morning, I realize that some of you have had terrible experiences with an earthly father, and I am the last to minimize the pain. Some of you have been exploited, some of you have experienced neglect. There are all kinds of images and problems you have when the word father comes up. But I encourage you to bring on the screen of your mind and heart this morning the image of a good, caring, involved father. And that is exactly who God is. Let me give you this example. We're all intrigued when a baby learns to walk, aren't we? Now, the father, good father, what does he do? Does he focus on the number of times that the baby falls, or does he focus on the when the baby walks? The good father probably doesn't take any pictures at all of the baby falling. But when the baby walks, the good father is over the moon. He is out there taking pictures of this baby walking. You know, one little step is something we're celebrating. And he is out there sharing that with his friends on Instagram. He's sharing it on Facebook. And there is this great sense of joy when the baby starts to walk. And that is exactly what the Father in heaven focuses on as well. God the Father focuses on our walking, not on our falling. All of us fall. All of us fall. And all of us become far too preoccupied with our falling and neglect the fact that the Father focuses on our walking. Four blessings of the life of God, the Christ follower. I give credit to Nicky Gumbo for these four words. The first one is a sense of purpose we get when we know the life of God. Why are we here on earth? What is our purpose? Who is in charge? Is there a creator, one who is responsible for the creation and gives us purpose? Because indeed we have the life of God, we know this sense of purpose. Genesis 1 and 1 is beautiful because it says, begins with just four words, in the beginning, God. Wow. It establishes the purpose for the universe. It establishes the purpose for life. It establishes who is in charge, who is the originator, sustainer of all life. Eugene Peterson, who paraphrased the message, has a magnificent way with words. And he takes a look at Genesis 1:1 and says this. What it says is this, he says, first, God. God is the subject of life. God is foundational for living. If we don't have a sense of the primacy of God, we'll never get it right, never get life right, never get our lives right. Not God at the margins, not God as an option, not God on the weekend, God at the center and the circumference. God first, God, God, God. Pretty clear, isn't it? That's the point. God is the center. And he needs to be the center in an ongoing way in our lives. Nicky Gumbo has a friend who was not a Christ follower until the birth of his first child. And then this friend was absolutely overwhelmed by the number of miraculous events coming together in the birth of this child. Like, who could have brought it about by happen chance? Who could have brought it about just happening without any sense of direction? The amazing direction from conception to birth to this baby coming out of the womb. The friend was just so amazed he became a Christian over it. Well, I don't have a picture of this man's baby, but I do happen to have a picture of Everly James Owen, okay? And there she is. But what an amazing concept which we have here. Everly James Owen has everything she needs in miniature form today. She has her brain there. She has her ability to walk. She has her ability to talk. She has her eyesight. She has her hearing. All of it is there because of the purpose of God. He is purposeful and brings us that sense of purpose when we accept and celebrate the life of God within us. Second blessing of the life of God is a sense of permanence. In case you haven't noticed, life flies by very, very quickly. I used to say to my girls on a regular basis, Life goes by like the snap of a finger. And it does. We need a sense of permanence. We need somebody who's anchoring us in eternity. Because if you haven't realized it, folk, I'm sorry. Wake up and smell the roses. Your life is going by very fast, and you aren't going to be here forever. And so we need this sense of purpose and permanence. And Nicodemus is given this in John 3:16, where he has said that when he believes, he will receive everlasting or permanent life. Craig Keener defines this as the life of the world to come, which the Christian begins to experience immediately when he or she believes in Jesus. And here is what is amazing about Jesus and the permanent sense he gives to people of life. Even when Jesus is dying on the cross, even when he has just been subjected to the brutality of a Roman crucifixion, Jesus is still concerned about giving permanence of life to people, because the thief on the cross believed in Jesus, and Jesus said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Giving a permanent life even just before he was about to die. Thirdly, the third blessing of the life of God is an amazing sense of pardon. Most human beings, except maybe one to the south of us in the United States, I said I was going to say, I said I was not going to say that, but I did, have a sense of realization that in this life we've blown it. Most of us have a sense that we've made mistakes, that we've hurt people, that we've broken the moral laws and the standards of God, and we need to receive pardon for our sins, with sin being defined as falling short of God's best. Have you ever fallen short of God's best? I have many times. If you've fallen short of God's best, you have sinned. You have sinned, and you need a sense of pardon. Margarita Lasky is an atheist philosopher who phrased it so well when she said this: "What I envy most about you Christians is your forgiveness. I have no one to forgive me." With the life of God comes a sense of pardon. Fourthly, with the life of God, there comes an amazing sense of power. Most human beings come to the point of realizing as well that despite the amount of education, money, and inner strength they possess, there are still life challenges that they don't have the power to cope with. The life of God gives us this amazing dimension of power that we just don't have on our own for trials, for challenges, for temptations, whatever they may be. The Apostle Paul strikes me as being just about one of the most confident, self sufficient people you could ever meet in life. The Apostle Paul, for example, came from the best educated class in Israel. He was a member of the Pharisees. He was a very successful lawyer. Do you sense self confidence in his life? He has dual citizenship as both a Jew and a Roman. He seems to have it made. And then he meets the risen Christ on the road to Damascus and found a whole new dimension of power. And we read about this in Philippians 4:13, where Paul says, "I can do everything through him who gives me strength." That's amazing. It came about through the life of God. I was recently at a funeral about 3 weeks ago of a friend of mine, and his name was Bill Willoughby. I've known Bill ever since I was a teenager, which of course was just yesterday. And it's been a number of years I knew Bill, and he passed away. And his son Phil told a wonderful story of his father in his life journey at the funeral. When Bill Willoughby was about 20 years of age, and I remember this well, he underwent surgery in the hospital in Scarborough to receive a colostomy. Now, maybe you don't know what a colostomy is. This means that for the rest of his life, he lived with a bag on his side where the bodily fluids collected. This was quite a blow, understandably, for a young 20-year-old man whose life lay ahead of him. And lying in that hospital, Bill became very, very depressed over his future. Very depressed. He thought to himself, "I'll never be able to get married. I'll never be able to hold a regular job." And as a result, one evening, his depression was so intense, he was praying intensely about this situation. And he prayed in English and he prayed in tongues. And by the way, tongues is an amazing way of praying to God, which is available to everybody who knows Jesus, not just super spiritual people. He prayed in English and he prayed in tongues and he went to sleep. And he woke up this next morning with an amazing, over encompassing sense of peace about his life. And he had that peace for the rest of his life. He got married, he fathered 2 children, and he taught school for 34 years. Bill Willoughby experienced the power of God in his life, and so can we. God never forces his magnificent gift of spiritual life on anyone. That would be totally demeaning to our humanity. Instead, we have a choice of either accepting or receiving and cultivating the life of God. This morning, are our spiritual eyes open to know more of the life of God here at Heartland Church? I love the story of 3 men who were walking together in a forest, okay? And they were looking at the beautiful sight of a magnificent stand of old growth trees. The first man was a naturalist, and this naturalist, in walking through the forest, saw a certain set of reality. He was thinking about the amount of sunshine that came to the forest. He was thinking about the quality of the soil that was needed to produce such impressive trees in that forest. The second man walking there was the historian and poet. And his mind wasn't at all on the soil or the leaves and the trees. His mind totally went back to who were the former rulers of this forest. Who were the great chieftains of tribes who ruled this forest? And he thought about the history and the poetic sense of the forest. The third man was thinking totally differently. The three of them were walking together. This third man was a lumberman. And when he looked at the forest, he saw the size and the diameter of the tree trunks. He saw the size of the limbs, and he calculated in his mind what would be the price of lumber that he would get for these trees. All 3 men walking in the same forest at the same time, experiencing totally different experiences. The same is true with us. When we are in life, we can either see and receive the life of God or not receive it. What will our choice be? In our world, the Christian message of the life of God is academically studied, and people write scholarly PhD theses on the life of God and the comparative merits of Christianity, the comparative merits of the Muslim faith, the Buddhist faith, and Christianity. But John, in his book, does not view Christianity at all like this. In John 20:31, and when you read the book this week, you'll notice this. It's all summed up in this bold challenge concerning what he has just written. And he gives this challenge to us today. He says these words, "These are written that you may believe, that you may commit that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." It's not enough to write a thesis. It's not enough to do comparative religion. John is saying you need to commit, and you need to commit on a regular basis. Rick Watt once again said, "The exalted Lord of heaven is accessible to all those who want him as a present, powerful reality." And the question for Jim Richards this morning is this life of God a present, powerful reality to me today in my life? The Gospel of John ends with Jesus on trial. We all know about that. But Rick Watts goes on to say this, the reality is this, that Jesus was victorious over his trial. But because there's this challenge to commitment, in reality, when we read the Gospel of John, we are all on trial. You thought we were all on trial? Pardon me. Yes, we are. We are all on trial with regard to our decision to accept or reject the life of God. And he says this, the trial can end in messy stuff or it can end in life. It all depends on the conclusion you decide. Well, you may have known a joyful, vibrant experience of the life of God in a previous day in your life at some place in Canada, or maybe at Heartland Church. You may have known a vibrant experience of the life of God as you lived in India or Sri Lanka or the Caribbean or Hong Kong or Zimbabwe or Nigeria. But the question this morning that is really the only important one is, what is your experience of the life of God today? I call forward the worship team. If they may come forward, please. What is your experience of the life of God today? You know, a sermon should be like a 787 Dreamliner plane that is flying over our heads. It may be like that. And when you look at this plane, you look up and you see a nice piece of machinery, but there's no personal benefit to the 787 Dreamliner that's just flying over your head because it's way up there in the air and you say, nice plane, but it doesn't affect me. I would like the sermon this morning to actually land. I'd like it to land. I'd like it to land in Jim's heart. I'd like it to land in your heart. And I'd like you to experience the life of God today. I'd like you to experience the life of God this week. So I encourage you and challenge you this week, read the Gospel of John, pray about the life of God in your own experience. And this morning we're going to close by looking at our own lives and saying, where are we in experiencing the life of God? Please stand with me. Please stand with me. The worship team is going to lead us in worship. We're going to do something a little different, and I think the Lord's directed me here on this. We're going to land the plane, okay? We're going to land the plane, and I'd like us to join in groups of 2, 3, or 4. Join hands if you want, but come into a bit of a cluster, and I want you to pray for each other that the life of God be more evident in your neighbor, your wife's, your husband's heart or experience. I want you to join in groups this morning. I want you to land the plane. I want us to actually pray about this. So would you do that? Would you join with the neighbor that is next to you? Would you come in groups of 2, 3, or 4? And the worship team is going to sing. And let's pray, Lord, that this life of God happen in me in a new way.